Rick, it's really good to see you.
Good to see you.
I have to apologize. I have a double booking here, so I have to leave in a few minutes.
Oh.
But it's really, but the people who are on the call know everything, literally everything.
Well,
So,
it's so good to see you, if not face to face, at least your face here. You know, and congratulations on the Smithsonian, the National Design Award.
thank you.
I saw that in a couple of different places and recognizes 40 years of achievement. So,
yeah, actually, I have to tell you, we were also successful with DDC finally.
yeah, Laura mentioned that in the email, and that's in collaboration with Ronnette.
Yeah, so it's
excellent.
Yeah, thanks for all the good advice. It took us a while to put it in a presentable mode, but it's not bad.
And it's registered, it's announced, it's public?
Yes, it's public.
It's
In
public.
fact, we had our kickoff meeting yesterday, and I guess this year they have a ton of money to spend, so it's sort of like the right year. The most interesting thing is, for years, I thought, you know, my colleagues are all so good. All our competitors, you said AECOM, super firm. I'm sort of in awe of the people that I have to compete against to get jobs. And I always thought that the way they should assign architecture projects would be to like when you go into a bakery and you get a number, you know, like, so when your number comes up, you get that project, you know, instead of you get a bagel, whatever, you get that project. And so that's what they're doing.
Yeah,
you know, they ranked us, they ranked our firms, and then the first ranked firm gets the first job and the second ranked firm gets the second job.
Yeah.
And if they go through the list, they said, oh, we may go through 2 or 3 times. And it's like, this is so civilized.
You know, I was there when we transitioned away from that procurement mechanism, rotation it was called, to the use of requirement contracts with some degree of you know, a competition, because I saw how easy it was to rig the rotation, not based on the rankings. The rankings are what they are, but which project comes up next is easily manipulable. And if some bureaucrat doesn't like your firm, you get stuck with a project that nobody really wants, even though you're higher ranked than the one who gets the next project, which is spectacular. So you might want to be aware of that.
Thank you. Now that I know the downfall,
counseled against rotation for that, primarily for that reason. But Feniowski and I have both been out of there for 4 or 5 years now. But you know, off the record, we're consulting. I shouldn't be tape recording this. We're the intermediaries between DDC and the Administration for Children's Services on some of the more interesting work transforming the juvenile justice system. And that's been fascinating to see how he, as former commissioner and in my former role, you know, how we interact with people who used to work for us or with us, you know, and now that we're just consultants, but translators. So the work is fascinating. There's a lot of money. We have an exciting new administration with some people coming back from the Bloomberg years. You know, and Ronnette is a force of nature, as you well know, and you know, she'll make sure that the rotation works in your favor, not against you.
I was just like, you know, I would just hate. I think the way they pick architects is absolute. To me, it's indecipherable most of the time.
Yeah.
You know, when we compete, I don't know if people don't ask us the right questions. And then they don't consider the right things for their projects. But you probably know this because you've been on both sides.
Well, you know, I was running the ranking system, and it was so hard to get a consistent. I mean, there was just countervailing interest because people had different priorities on the review teams. The project managers were looking about, you know, schedule and budget only. My design excellence folks were looking at you know, continuing what, you know, David Burney had started in the Bloomberg years, you know, echoing Marilyn and Ed at GSA. And, you know, my introduction of you, if you were the speaker, I'll forestall it, was that you did the first federal office building, I guess, Oklahoma City, replacing the bombed out one through GSA in the design excellence program. The first one designed by a woman-owned firm. That surprised me. You know, I knew Max Bond railed against GSA's procurement for its not hiring Black architects, but I just couldn't imagine that there wasn't, some project, even when Marilyn Jordan Taylor was running SOM, that, it wasn't done by a woman-owned business or woman-led business.
I know it's only been a short time ago. What can I say?
Yeah. Well,
but yeah.
so
Anyway,
you have to leave right away, or can you give us a few words of inspiration?
When I have to leave, I may be able to get back, but I have to leave. I have a client that's kind of needy right now. So.
Well, it's good to see you. I'll hope to be in Chicago in June for the IA thing, and maybe we'll have a chance to catch up there.
Absolutely.
Come over. We're having an open house, Rick.
Great.
But do come by anyway. I mean, you don't need to come to the open house. You can come anytime.
Well, can I bring 20 students?
Absolutely. Bring over.
Why not? The more the merrier.
Yeah, I think once the term ends, Columbia's strictures on travel restrictions are history. So we'll see. Maybe. But I'm half joking. But probably more than that.
Oh, I hope it stays this way. It's feeling way better. The only thing is now I'm traveling lots again, and I'm not sure I missed it. And these guys who you're going to talk to are also kind of like wrung out now too, because our clients actually want to see us. Very novel.
Yeah. No, I've gotten used to Zoom, and it's so nice to be places face to face.
Yeah, really.
I guess the one thing I will say by way of a parting introduction is that an extroduction is, I still recall with such pleasure the program that you organized and that we did together at the first Chicago Biennial on design excellence, with GSA involved as well.
And you know what? Actually, that's in place in Chicago now.
Right.
It's a little crude, but we have a review panel, and it's consisting of architects. And amazingly, it's some of the architects who we were talking to. Casey Jones joined Perkins and Will, so he's in Chicago. So he's one of the design excellence reviewers. But it's interesting. What it took was finally Maurice Cox became the commissioner of planning.
Yeah.
And again, like you're talking about rotation, there are positives and negatives about this system, but it is an improvement.
Yeah, and you have Claudia Erasmi working with him, who was head of urban design at our Department of City Planning recently, and Angela Tovar, who came back to Chicago from the South Bronx.
Yeah, it's
team
really
he's put together. Yeah,
to have an emphasis. We've always had.
You gotta go.
Yeah, we've had a huge emphasis on the legal and business piece of planning and development, but it's interesting to have an emphasis on the design piece. Okay, I have to go. I'm so sorry.
Well, that's okay.
I got double scheduled, but it's good seeing you.
Okay, well, I'm in good hands. We're in good hands, and nice to see you. I hope to see you in June. Thanks,
Good.
Carol.
Bye.
Okay, are we ready? Let's kick it off.
Okay, if you don't have the right to share screen, let me see if I could allow participants to share screen. I think I just made that possible. If it's not, I'll temporarily make you the host if you are willing to let people in. But try, if you have a PowerPoint ready to go, see if it can come up.
We've got it.
Great.
You see screen?
Yep. You want to make it full screen? I see.
Yeah.
Great. Excellent.
Okay. Well, I'll kick it off. My name is Eric Martin. I'm a principal with Ross Barney Architects. I've been here for, over 25 years now. And probably the reason why I've been here so long is just the work that we do. It's like our mission is just doing good work for what we call public architecture. And so, it's just exciting to just work on a number of different projects, different types of project that has an impact on our users and the cities that we do our work in. So I'm going to talk about a couple of projects that we've done for the Chicago Transit Authority. It's called the CTA. We do a lot of work with them within the city in terms of stations and support facilities for their operations, and so they're really valuable client to our firm. And again, the work that we've done for CTA has impact on the city in terms of users and basically allowing them to get around. I think CTA is pretty robust transit system. I use it all the time, and it's really convenient and I think sustainable as well. So the two projects that we have that I'm going to be talking about today are Morgan Street Station and on the left, and then Cermak McCormick Place Station. These are two brand new stations within the downtown area. Morgan Street Station was completed in 2012 and it had a budget of $35 million. And then Cermak McCormick Place, that was completed in 2015 with a budget of $40 million. And these stations there are basically, they're pretty much like there was existing stations at both of these locations back in late 1800s, and those stations were, subsequently demolished for Morgan in 1948, and then for Cermak Station that was demolished in 78. So the stations that we did are basically going in the same location where those existing stations were, basically to serve pretty much, a growing, those areas basically had come back to life in a sense in terms of McCormick and Morgan. And kind of speaking to that, again, like the Morgan Street, that's like located on called the West Loop of Chicago. And that area is like really taken off in terms of retail, residential. It's like becoming I would kind of maybe equate that to New York, like the Soho area. It's very industrial kind of a neighborhood, and a lot of the office buildings or warehouse buildings have been repurposed to like residential and commercial spaces. And then there's a lot of new construction occurring in that area. So the Morgan Street Station helped augment in terms of transportation for that revitalization of that neighborhood. And then the Cermak McCormick Place Station is located in what we call the South Loop of Chicago. And that station is, really adjacent to our convention center called McCormick Place. And so that basically serves, for visitors to our city going to McCormick Place for conventions and seminars and that type of thing. We have our auto show there as well. So that provides access, the Cermak Station provides access to that facility. And as I said, both sites are, they're replacing our existing stations were there at a certain point in time. And so they're really are in really tight, constricted locations in terms of adjacent buildings. And there really is not a whole lot of room to construct those stations, but we were able to kind of like dovetail them into their locations. And, in terms of just how they fit into the neighborhood, these are just images of, of those two stations. And I think what's really kind of key here is just, in terms of like the views back into the city and just, that connection back to downtown and providing views of the skyline in the background, I think is really what's one of the successful things about the station, about both of these stations. So just a little bit more conversation about the McCormick Place Station. Basically, it's a stainless steel tube that is enclosing the tracks and the platform. The tube is constructed of steel tubes with perforated metal panels, and that's basically providing, it serves as pretty much like a windbreak to protect the passengers standing on the platform. And also, the perforation allows visibility out to the neighborhood or to the surrounding neighborhood. And so, this is just elevations of sections of pretty much what I was describing in terms of that tube enclosing the platform. You have a station, basically there's like three stations. There's a main station that's on the right, that's at grade, and that's where we have all of them have fair arrays, and then we have another station across the street of Cermak, and then there's one further south on 23rd Street. In terms of the construction of the tube, one of the challenges with the projects was that basically we had this was an active track. So we had to, CTA mandated that, we really couldn't take that track out of operations. So in terms of the construction of the tube, pretty much the frame was assembled pretty much at the shop, and then they brought it out to the site, and then they hoisted it up onto the concrete structure. This was done over a weekend, so that was the only time that they allowed the contractor to basically take the train out of service, and it was like for a couple of days, and they were able to erect that, get that structure in place, and then back the train back in, or the track back in service on Monday morning. And then this photo is just kind of showing the installation of the perforated panels there. So, again, it's, I think I skipped a slide here. Let's see here, apologies. Missing a slide, but just talking about one of the reasons why we came up with the tube in terms of, why we came up with the tube was one of the challenges, like I said, is the site, or where the site is located, is pretty much in a very confined area in terms of right of way. And again, this was existing tracks, and we weren't allowed to increase the width of the tracks because of the platform. And there's a lot of elements that have to go on that platform in terms of like windbreaks and benches and trash enclosure. And by putting those elements on the platform, that would basically have an impact on the width in terms of like passenger flow and that. So we kind of came up with a solution of creating this tube and basically enclosing the entire track and platform structure, and thus eliminating having those windbreaks and benches, which would clutter up the platform. And then, in essence, by doing this tube situation, we kind of created this more open platform, as you can see here in this photo. Another thing that we came up with the design in terms of, again, issues with signage, and one of the things is the mandate from the CTA is like they really don't like a lot of exposed conduits and stuff. And so what you see above the platform is basically a cable tray, which incorporate our PA system lighting and signage and stuff. So it really, to me, it's just like really cleaned up the platform and just really made it a very, pleasant environment to be in. And then it's just the image in terms of looking again through at the tube and as you're on the platform. And then this is an image of the station house, one of the station house here, and basically the panel is basically called a protection for the ceiling panels, a protection for any kind of debris or snow or water, ice that might fall from the train above. And so that's providing protection for those passengers in the station house. Then this is a view of the station located at the 23rd Street location. This is the image of that main station house. Again, this is like one of the things that was really important for this project, as well as for Morgan Station. But really, what we were charged with in terms of CTA is making this an iconic station and the gateway to, specifically this particular site for passengers coming from not from Chicago, from out of town. This is an iconic structure, and this is a gateway to the McCormick Place Convention Center. And again, making something memorable for visitors to the city. And then real quick, Morgan Street Station, just a little bit of highlights. Again, wanted this to pretty much kind of form as a gateway to the West Loop area. And create this iconic structure. And so the station that we create is, pretty much a glass, really glass enclosed structure to, provoke daylighting and create a light and airy feeling for the passengers as they go up to the platform. Again, this is like, just trying to weave in. This is like, we had to basically reinforce the structure that supported the tracks. So these are like new beds that support that existing track structure. And then the other thing that we really kind of wanted to incorporate into this project is just the Incorporation of Art. And so we have like really bike racks that were artistically created by artists that we installed for this particular project. And then this is, you know, in terms of connection to the platform, we created like basically these two boxes that enclose the vertical circulation that gets you up from the grade level to the station house up to the platform level. And this is like a view of one of those within one of those boxes in terms that steer up. Again, it's pretty much a curtain wall system with glass units with a fritted pattern on it to basically cut down on the glare and glare into the space. And then in terms of the materials used for the platform, at platform level, we went with a little bit more robust material in terms of use of precast concrete planks. And you know, one of the things that's mandated by CTA is that we utilize materials that are pretty much maintenance free and has a longevity in terms of use. And so we really look for robust materials, and precast was one of those materials that we selected for this particular project. And then in terms of the platform canopy, one of the things that we utilize a lot in our CTA projects, there's a polycarbonate panel. It's really cost-effective material in terms of maintenance, and in terms of longevity. In terms of like glass, it's not prone to breaking like similar to glass. And then it still provides light to be distributed down to the platform level. And then one of the other things in the background that you see, you know, basically they're stationed on either side of Lake Street. And so in order to facilitate passengers needing to go to either side of the platform, create this connecting bridge between the two stair towers to allow for passengers to get from one side of the platform to the other side instead of going downstairs out of the station and going across the street and going back up to the platform. And so I think that was a really successful solution in terms of creating, again, this iconic feel. And then it's just a view of the platform. Again, as I indicated earlier, I mean, one of the things that we really wanted to like emphasize is just that visibility to have that view back to the city skyline, that connection to downtown. And then, and just another view of this vertical transportation boxes there. Again, really wanted to really emphasize just openness and just not feeling, you know, like closed in and providing daylight into the space. So that's it for CTA.
I know we're already kind of running short on time. We've got racked up, what do we have, Riverwalk and Zoo? How does that sound, Rick? Would that be okay?
That's great. Let's maybe leave a little bit of time for conversation questions at the end.
Yeah.
Unless we want to talk about a housing project.
Yeah, Ryan, you want to jump in, maybe do one of your housings?
Well,
yeah, I think, yeah, if you guys want to hear that, that's cool.
Sure.
I can do Auburn Gresham. So I'll steal the screen, Eric, here.
Okay.
And I'll try to go through this somewhat quickly. I'm Ryan Giblin. I'm also a principal at Ross Barney. I've been here about 15 years. Thanks for meeting with us today. It's cool to have a chance to work on some fun academic stuff once in a while. So thank you for taking us out of the routine of emails. So let me go to full screen here. Let me know if you can see this. And I'm going to apologize here. I'm going to bump back and forth a little bit between a couple of different presentations, but I'll try to go through this quickly. So we typically have done all public work. That's, you know, been our kind of charge. That's what we've been doing for the last 4 years since Carol started the firm. This is our first sort of foray into affordable housing proper. This is in the Auburn Gresham neighborhood, 79th and Halsted on the south side of Chicago. And this is funded through the Invest Southwest program, which is Mayor Lightfoot's effort to kind of revitalize these classically underserved communities on the west and south side of
Can I get
Chicago.
an iced latte with oat?
Sure.
Sorry, what? Oh, sorry. Yeah.
And so this is the 79th Street corridor. So north is sort of to the upper left-hand corner here. And so this was sort of the first
Here.
first attempt at the RFP. So what these programs did, they have city funding, but they require a full development team to put a proposal together. So our team consisted of a private developer, kind of a joint venture private developer, a contractor, and an architecture team. And so that's how a lot of these Invest Southwest projects are approached. And then you respond to an RFP that the city has put out there, and then you're selected. You need a design proposal, and you need a pro forma in terms of, you know, the amount of affordable housing, the amount of retail, and then a budget, and then you're selected competitively. So we were lucky enough to be selected for this project, and this is sort of the first view. One of the things that's kind of part and parcel with the redevelopment of the community here in the salmon color is a new metro station at 79th Street. We're actually also doing, this is Eric's project. We're also doing this, and we're just starting construction administration on this project now. But that took some time to get through. But that, you know, public transportation obviously is a big key to revitalizing a neighborhood. So this, I think, will be very helpful. There's also the 79th Street bus and the Halsted bus. So this is a really well-served community by transit and kind of prime for redevelopment. So this parcel here in blue was the original RFP site. But as part of the development team's vision, thinking that, you know, their involvement in the neighborhood wouldn't just be limited to this one project. So we were thinking about other opportunities to develop city-owned parcels within the neighborhood. So this could be outside of the context of Invest Southwest. This is a large parcel that the city owns, as is this corner parcel here. And then a couple of other ideas about how infill could occur. So the idea, you know, kind of spawned by Commissioner Cox is that you just have to start, and you have to start with retail as part of a mixed use development, and then other retail will follow. So that was sort of the idea here about the mixed use development. And so what we initially proposed, and I'll go to the next slide, in the RFP was a 62 unit development on this site, and pretty dense, kind of, you know, filling the street edge, bottom floor retail. We also had some thoughts about having community gardens in the front, retail off to the corner. This immediately, even though it completely met the requirements of the RFP in terms of the density, the number of units, and the amount of retail, it was immediately a concern to the community because of the density of affordable housing. And so we looked at another option right off the bat, where we had more of a retail presence on 79th Street and more sort of articulated masses. But the big concern from the community continued to be this high amount of density on a street that hasn't been dense in some time. So what we did is we kind of stopped, and I'm going to hop over to another slide here. If I can find it. So what we did was, it was sort of something we talked to DPD about, and kind of thought we needed a kind of a hard reset, in that, you know, to address the community's concerns, what we felt we needed to do was take a pause and do an immersive community engagement effort. And so our team went to Auburn Gresham, and we sat down with the residents. We had open houses, multiple open houses. We had surveys. We had in-person, face-to-face meetings, and we just listened to the community. What did they want to hear? So we had, or what did they want to tell us about what they wanted to see on the site? So we had 2 open houses where people could just come and give us their ideas. And then we had a synthesis workshop where we had the community basically assemble the, we had the program blocks that you see in yellow and orange and blue here, and let the residents tell us the types of things, the types of activities they wanted to see on the site, and the type of density that would be.
Hey, Ryan, you're not sharing screen, brother.
Oh, sorry. So, yeah, just to back up a step. So we had these series of open houses where we met in a couple of different locations. We met at Leo High School right down the street, and we met at a local park district field house. And then we had a synthesis workshop where the residents of the neighborhood could tell us, the types of things they wanted to see on the site. And they actually started doing their own programming exercises with blocks to tell us what density would be acceptable, what type of uses would be acceptable. And we kind of wanted to capture this because one of the things we kept hearing is that the city doesn't listen to the residents. And so we kind of compiled this record of what we had heard and represented it to them so that they understood that, the team was listening to them. And then we represented some of the options that the community came up with. So these were not things that the design team drove other than to facilitate the discussion. So these are, options that the community came up with. And to make this, basically make them part of this process rather than the city coming in and sort of defining what was going to happen. So that was pretty successful. And the result of that was that in order to do a reduced density here, to still make it feasible from a development standpoint, still provide the number of affordable housing units that the city wanted, and to provide the amount of retail that would revitalize 79th Street, what we did was we divided the project up from one dense development into two parcels. And so lucky enough, just a block away at the corner of 79th and Halsted was a separate city-owned site. So what we had done, we started this matrix. And so we had the original site, and then we had the site at the corner, and then we even entertained another adjacent city-owned site. And we started working with the city and the development team and the community to see what would be acceptable in terms of density. And if we had X amount of money to spend and we knew we needed to hit 64 units, how could we divide it up onto both of the sites? And what we ended up with was close to really this number, I would say number 4, number 3, number 4, sort of in this range where we would do sort of a medium height 3-story building on the original site. And then we did a 5-story building at the corner. At the corner of Halsted and 79th is quite a busy intersection. So that increased density was a little bit more acceptable at the corner. So this is site 1, and conceptually what this is a kind of a solid masonry volume that's sort of carved away. And then we have a 3-story cement board panel building here. And the idea, because we're taking up an entire city site, to kind of break up the massing and seem like maybe there was more than one building on the site. And then at the center, what we've done is we've located a community room where the community can come. They can have aldermanic meetings. They can have after school events in this space. So this is sort of an offering to the community, as is this public plaza and park. So walking down the 79th Street corridor, we have retail here, the idea of a restaurant tenant that the development team has identified that will come in here. We can have overhead doors that go onto this plaza. So this is sort of a shared restaurant and public plaza. And then at the back of the site, it was really important to capture as much green space as we could, which is kind of unusual for developments in the city of Chicago. But again, it was something that was driven through this community outreach process rather than something we were, as the city or the design team, imposing on the residents. So here's a view on 79th Street looking to the east. This project here was the Pritzker Prize Chicago Healthy Hub. And so the Auburn Gresham Development Corporation is redeveloping this project right now. And so there will be a lot of social service tenants in here, and kind of healthy living, healthy food tenants. And so there's some synergy created between our building and this new development. And we sort of have this plaza here responding to that development across the street. Site 2 at the corner, again, this is somewhat more of a hard, I guess it's a harder site because it's only 120 feet by 100. So really we had to go a little bit more vertical to get the amount of affordable housing units that we wanted. But again, the impression is the same. We're holding the hard urban edge here with retail wrapping around the corner. And then above, sort of the idea where at the other site, people have an outdoor space in the form of a park. At this site, because we were so limited on site area, the emphasis was to give everyone their own outdoor area in the form of a exterior balcony. And then we do have a common roof deck. So these amenities, that you don't classically see in affordable housing, the city keeps pushing this design excellence for these programs. And I think we'll get, citywide, we'll get a much better product out of affordable housing that we're used to seeing. And this is just sort of a close-up view off of the sidewalk. Again, trying to get a little bit of green where we can, even though the sidewalk is so tight. So that's sort of Auburn Gresham in a nutshell. We are currently at the beginning of construction documents, hoping to break ground later this year. So that's sort of where we're at in this process.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you.
Sure.
And we have time, if you'd like, for just a little bit on Riverwalk and maybe a few minutes for questions at the end. What do you think?
This is another very interesting project.
Okay.
Window. Keep going. Keep going to the
You
right.
can do it.
There you go. Window.
So this is the Lincoln Park Zoo Visitor Center project. Lincoln Park Zoo is a free zoo. It's just north of the downtown area in Chicago, near the lake and Lakeshore Drive. And because it is a free zoo, it has multiple entrances. And one of the issues that they had was that no one could find their visitor services and their guest services. So there was always a building on the site, but people would walk through the zoo and walk right past it because there was no reason to stop. Because of the free zoo, they don't have to pay, they just walk through. So there was a problem where people were not able to figure out where to go to, get information, to rent strollers. And so that was one of the main goals of the project, was to create a welcome environment that people could instinctively know where to go and transform them as they walked into the zoo. So the location is at the east entrance next to the parking area. So it has a lot of traffic from people coming from cars. So this project, besides the guest services where they get information, they also incorporated a lot of other services from the zoo. They have their security located here, cash counting, the IT, and a new function that they had for membership services, which was not a space that they had previously. So it's a pretty small building. It's under 10,000 square feet, but it has a lot of different services within it. So our idea was to really create a gateway into the space. So when you are going through the zoo, that you are transforming, it's a transformation process as you're going under the canopy, and you realize that you are, not in the Chicago anymore. You're going into the zoo. So the main features that we had were this canopy structure, and because it is one of the entrances, a big gate feature. Because it is a zoo, they need to close the gate at the end of the day, and they also need a gate so if an animal happened to escape, they could contain it. So the picture you see right here is the visitors guest entrance area, and one of the things that we explored was creating a operable wall so that the people that are in the visitor center area are kind of out in front of all the people that are walking through, and they wouldn't have the problem of just walking past the visitor center without knowing it was there because they were right on display. And this feature was really great during COVID because it allowed them to keep the walls open and have a lot of air flow. So they were able to keep this area going during coronavirus. Here's a map showing the location with the lake to the right and Lakeshore Drive. And here's a view. You can see the proximity to the city. We have a green roof on the building. Here's another view. So here. Another thing that we studied was the pavement and is part of the transformation. So we were looking at the canopy, the gate, and then also the permeable pavers. This actually didn't get installed this way. We changed it during construction, as you can see here. Get to the pictures. Okay, here's the canopy. So, you know, as I said, we really wanted a feeling of transformation as you were going into the zoo. And the feature that really helped with that was the canopy. And we were studying the different planes. So it's a really neat structural innovation, but also trying to look at the patterns to made it feel like a forest. So the panels and the shadows kind of create this entry gateway in there where you get a feeling of going through like a forest. Earlier renditions, we also had like hanging plants from the canopy so that also you could be immersed in the smells. That was too much of a maintenance concern for the zoos, but I think the canopy panels with the shadows really give it a pretty neat dramatic effect as you enter the space. And the structure is very interesting. The contractors, when they were installing this, it was really funny. There was a couple of them that were scared to walk underneath it. And you can see here that with the panel studies, so looking at the different trees and for filtering the light through. We had a lot of different renditions of this because one of the requirements was that the gate can't be climbable by a human or an animal. The animals were mostly like the big cats they weren't worried about. We know a monkey would be able to climb it, but it was really like the more dangerous animals that they were worried about. And so we built mock-ups in the office, and we had a mock-up on site, making sure that the spaces that we had within the panel were not big enough for anyone to get a real good foothold. So they're all like really slanted. And you can see when the gate is closed and when the gate is open, it all has that same panel on both the canopy and the gate. Some more views. I hope that was quick enough.
That was quick. So we have about 5 minutes. What do we want to just entertain any questions or?
We have so many questions that I'd like to suggest that maybe we follow up with email if there are things that are burning questions that the students have. I know I would have enjoyed another hour of discussion. Do you have a few images of Riverwalk? Because if we were there, that's where we would be walking.
Okay, we can bring that up.
On such a beautiful day.
The Riverwalk was truly a transformational project. I know you've been here many times, Rick, to see it, but it just, in my mind, just keeps getting better and better every year with new vendors, with new, housing being built in the center core of the city. It's a pretty stunning thing to have happen to the city of Chicago. And the concept there, basically, it's 1.25 miles of promenade along the river. We'll get back to that in a second. There you go.
Great.
Connecting the main branch of the Chicago River with Lake Michigan. You can see here the context.
Yeah, so we basically, like, the Riverwalk project was done in 3 phases. As you can see, the first phase was done in 2005. Between 2005 and 2009, and then the second phase was in the latter portion of 2015, and then phase 3 was 2016. And so basically what we're trying to do is like create these, pretty much like these series of rooms in each of the blocks along the Riverwalk.
The construction photos are interesting. We could just skip forward to those.
So, you know, trying things with the city or each of the rooms we're trying to do is like deal with like economics, recreational, cultural, ecology. This
That
is
was
just photos of
The
it.
existing conditions are
Right,
fascinating.
right,
There it is at
yeah.
the top.
So this is what it was before, and then this is how, you know, we transform that space, pretty much. Yeah. And then, as Laura was
What a
saying, in
great
terms of
photo.
construction, you know, it was pretty interesting. Basically, we were building out from, as you saw in the existing condition photo, we actually built land out into the river. I think we took like,
Right.
gosh, like 20 feet out into the river. And so
You
basically,
can see it on the bottom photo.
yeah, right here,
Backfill.
kind of created this dock wall with using sheet pile, and then we just pretty much infilled that area between the dock wall and the existing land. You know, just filled it up with rocks, and then that was compacted, and then basically put our finished materials on there. And then at the bridges, basically they drilled like caissons to support the walkway structure of the underbridge area. And this is a photo of that underbridge. And so again, this is pretty much on caissons. And then this cladding is basically a steel structure with stainless steel panels. And that canopy is basically kind of similar to what we were doing at Cermak, is protect any debris that might fall from in the bridges in terms of cars and specifically cars, from that debris falling on passengers walking up under that bridge.
And really those underbridge canopies were the linchpin of this whole thing working, because prior to that, you'd have to walk a block, descend down 25 feet, walk 1 block, walk up the stairs again. So this allowed the connection, the continuous connection, without ever having to walk on the street.
Correct.
Along the river.
So this is like phase 1. This is our first project that we did on that Riverwalk, which is at Michigan Avenue. And this is part of that project. This is Wabash Plaza, which also contains a memorial, the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, where basically designed this panel that has the names of veterans of the Vietnam War that were killed in action from Illinois. I was going to say Chicago, that's Illinois. And then this is phase 2. This is the Marina room, Marina Plaza, and this basically provides hovercraft to dock at this particular room. And this really popular room, I think probably one of the favorite rooms of the city. A lot of activity occurs in the space.
The favorite room of the big boat.
Right, and then this is another view of the Marina Plaza. Then the next room is called the Cove, and this is more facilitating kind of hand-powered boat craft. And so they, at this space, they rent kayaks for users to use to go out into the river. And then another photo of the Cove. And one of the things too, wanted to just kind of create almost like this beach kind of like effect. And so we used a lot of plant material that's kind of reminiscent of being like out on the beach or a cove. And then the next room is the River Theater. And this is one of the connection points in terms of providing accessibility from the upper Wacker Drive down to the river level. So basically what we did to solve that problem was in essence, integrate ramp within the stair that gets you down. So that stair serves both as for seating as well as vertical access down to the level. But the design of the ramp, one of the things we wanted to do was to try to get to the bare minimum in terms of slope, that we would not have to incorporate handrails. Because by adding handrails, that would just, like, I think, just totally destroy the view as you're sitting in the space. So this is like at a 1 to 20 slope that allowed us to eliminate the handrail or guardrails, I'm sorry. And then this is just a view of from across the river of that theater, and just in terms of the incorporation of lighting to accentuate the ramp. I think it's really kind of successful. It's really integrated into the space. And then the third phase of the project, phase 3, we incorporate these 3 rooms as the water plaza room. And this particular space, I think we really wanted to try to, like, really get back into the engagement of the river and water in that feature. So we developed this water feature in this particular room that has this really interactive fountain function. And then has like this kind of almost like zero kind of water fountain that water kind of like a membrane surface that basically cascades over the edge of the surface down the wall. Really popular space for the kids. And then the next room is called a Jetty, and this is, again, you know, like I mentioned before, in terms of like one of the purposes of this space is just to kind of speak to the ecology of the river and all the life that lives in that river, and just kind of want to talk to that. And then also in terms of the plantscape, so we kind of create these trees that has landscape plant materials that are that basically are conducive in terms of like flooding and stuff, that really are tolerant to that type of action that occurs in our river. And then also we created, gosh, help me out, Ryan, what was this called? The fish hotels.
The Lunkers.
Yeah. So it basically kind of promotes, if I recall correctly, it's almost like a feeding system or tube system that allows, you know, attracts fish. And so again, what happens at the Jetty as well, I mean, fishermen do come out and they actually fish. And so, and I think it's also contributing to helping clean up the river as well. This is a photo of that. And then skipping the last, that's it. And then the last room is, it's kind of undeveloped. Basically, it's and I don't have a photo, but it's another place where we provide a ramp, basically to get folks back up from that river walk up to the Upper Wacker Drive. And one of the things too, in terms of resiliency, I mean, as I mentioned, the river has a tendency of flooding and the river level rising. So when we did our design, we took that in consideration. So we knew roughly what that annual event in terms of flooding would occur, which would be like +1. So we located all our spaces, like in terms of like commercial space, retail spaces, restrooms, and that type of thing above that elevation, so that we're not going to have any water enter that space, but everything else in terms of materials and that are conducive for dealing with that event. And this is a photo I think occurred probably like maybe
it opened.
Yeah, when it opened and that river basically flooded, and so we knew our design was successful. We thought it through.
Great presentation. Thank you all, and if you would also thank Carol for me. I know she had to leave early. We will be sending questions, I'm sure, by email.
Okay.
We're going to segue momentarily. I see that Denise Castellino and Frank Lewis have joined us, and that was intentional to go seamlessly from one presentation to the other. I'm sure Chicago is large enough that you don't necessarily run into each other competing for work on other projects, but it's also small enough that everybody knows everybody else. So I can't thank you all enough. A great presentation. I won't try to do a summation and impose on your time or our new guest, but it was exactly what we were hoping for. You know, this field study is immersive to the degree that one can dip your foot in the water from afar. Relish seeing not only the affordable housing and transit projects, but the zoo project and certainly Riverwalk, you know, some of which I've seen last time I was in Chicago. You know, and you know, we'll be concluding our 10 meetings with people who are reshaping and have given shape to Chicago, with more discussion about transit and transportation issues with current Transportation Commissioner Gio Biaggi. Thank you. If you want to linger, please do.